Awake already? At least I have some time before opening. Yesterday was so much. My mind is still racing, even while half asleep. But things aren't gonna start being less anytime soon. I think I need to tell someone about this. Yeah. Get all of it off my chest and start today with a clean slate. That's the plan for the morning. I finally get to lie down and spend some time with you, Teddy. You're still my favorite, you know?
Oh,
What? Just because I haven't talked to you in a while doesn't mean I forgot about you. Things have been so crazy, it feels like just yesterday, Lau rudely invited himself into the store. Yes, I know, it was only 2 days ago, Teddy, but it's all just so sudden. A tracer shows up at my door, and then I'm a conduit, and I can enchant jewelry. But meeting Jazz was when it all started to feel real. I was actually doing it, and it felt so natural too. And how sweet was Jazz? I really hope we can be friends, like she said. But I don't know if she really will come back. You know how people always say things like that, and then the weeks go by and they forget all about you? Dang. Well, maybe I'm just like you, Teddy. Always worried that people will forget me. Although, after that comment about Moth Lover's pizza, maybe she won't come back after all. I really hope she wasn't lying when she said she didn't take it to heart. But then there's the person I'm most confused about. Lau. You thought I'd say Maribel, didn't you, Teddy? I mean, I did. I also thought you'd say Maribel. She was something. Honestly, I still don't really know Lau all that well. It kind of bothers me because, well, he's helped me so much. Almost too much. You don't see people like him every day. He's trying really hard to change things, and he doesn't have to do any of this. But he's still a weirdo. I don't get him, Teddy. I'm overthinking it. He's just a tracer. This is what tracers do, right? At least if they're really dedicated to their job like he is. And maybe the weirdo stuff is in the job description. How to be a tracer, the complete guide. Step 1. You must barge into homes of strangers unannounced and brood for at least 2 hours a day. But still, he's spending an awfully long time on my case. Doesn't he have other things to do? What? No, that's not it at all, Teddy. You're being silly. Bad, Teddy. I'm just kidding. Making him do little faces. That's so adorable. You know, I couldn't stay mad at you, Teddy. Besides, Lau's not like that anymore. Remember what he said when I tried to introduce him to Jazz? He's heartless. But he sure was right about Maribel. She scared the spirit out of me. After everything she and I went through, I'm not sure what to think. It's also sad, what she said about Zayessa and her life. I wonder what the other Zayessans will be like. Will they be anything like those mindless hedonic zombies she spoke of? I'm not sure I believe it just yet. Then again, Teddy, I have to say that the Twilight Jeweler is starting to attract some very eccentric characters. But I don't know, I'm kind of enjoying it so far. Maribel and Jazz, it feels like they've brought so much life back to this place. She's so adorable. Ah, my heart. Even just knowing that I can provide something to others, something that isn't just bad weather, it feels good. You know, I think Mum would be a little proud of us, Teddy. Ooh. Speaking of, I can't stop thinking about the memory of her. You know that day after chess class when Mum brought me my favorite icy pole when I was like 8 or something? Why did I remember that? It felt so strong too. If you ask me, I think it had something to do with chaos. Maybe I'm crazy, but it just feels like it has to be it. It feels so unreal. It feels like I've never had to think this much about chaos before. Not even just because of the rain I'm causing. Which is still pouring down, though I feel fine, really. I'm not even lying, not one bit. I do feel fine. Maybe you're right. It does make sense that it'd take some time for the chaos to sort of mellow out and the rain clouds to return to normal. That's okay. We're not in any rush. We'll get there, slowly but surely. Isn't that right, Teddy? Yeah. But I have to admit, I'm feeling a little wary still. Of being positive. Think about it. Sure, everything went well today, but what if it just seems that way? I have no idea how Ella and Maribel's husband will react to the jewelry, and how my enchantments will affect them. Will Maribel's husband even wear the ring if she tells him the purpose behind it? She did say he was very reluctant to accept her help after all. But then, if she doesn't tell him what it's for, maybe he just won't bother wearing it. And who knows how Ella will react. I hope I meet her one day. From how Jazz described her, I'm imagining someone like Lau, except less intimidating. Not that he intimidates me, he's just confronting. Not that I feel confronted by him. Okay, sometimes. But only when he looks me dead in the eyes and says something like, "Twyla, stop! Don't do this. Don't give me promises you have no idea how to keep, Twyla." Can you believe he said those things like 5 minutes after meeting me, Teddy? You can? Well, yeah, I guess. That's Lau. Believe it or not. But Ella sounds sweet. I really do think it'd be kind of cool if we hung out together. Jazz and me and Ella. And maybe Lau too if he wants to. I know I was gonna stop thinking about it, but it's been so long since I've done anything like that, Teddy. Since I dropped out and everything. Plus, it feels like so much longer than a year since I hung out with those girls at uni. I don't even remember their names anymore. I think I've forgotten a lot of things. What did you drop out of uni for? Just to like help at the shop, or? All Maribel's talk of being stuck in a cycle of pleasure, it reminded me of those days. It was some earth-forsaken cycle I was stuck in back then. Remember how I was just barely hanging on? Each and every day. How I would feel some kind of emotional revelation about Mum once a week and see that glimmer of hope, then plummet back down into a bout of missing her terribly just a day later. But opening the store back up again broke that cycle. I broke out of my prison. And then Lewis threw me straight back into the slammer, bam, and threw the keys in the ocean. Yay? No, Teddy. Lau did not dive in like a hero and grab those keys back for me. More like he threw me in a cage into the sea and had me unlock the damn thing myself. And then Jazz dives in, my heroine, and brings me back to solid ground. Maybe I should just ask her to hang out. I miss that girl already. And I really should get back into reading. When did sleep become my only hobby, Teddy? I don't know how Mum did it, running the store all by herself. Maybe she was a bit crazy, or maybe all mums are. Aw. That's adorable. You alright there, Twyla? Uncle! Uncle, you scared me there. Sorry, I was just...
Hey.
Hey, that's alright, Twyla. You thought you were alone in the house. I understand. We all do strange things when we're alone. No worries there. Yeah. But Twyla, I'd heard you opened back up again. Yeah, I have. But it's almost 9 already. Did you move your opening hours around? Oh, forces. Uncle doesn't know anything of what happened the last couple days, does he? Yes, I open at 10 now. But there's more to it. I have a lot to catch you up on. Well, first off, how are you feeling? I should have asked earlier if I'm honest, but I thought you'd need some time and... I'm doing well, Uncle. Really? You sure? I am. Like I said, a lot has happened. And you saw Lau a couple days ago. Well... Sounds like I'm in for a long one. How about we get opened up downstairs? And then you can tell me everything. Deal. There we go. All done. So you were saying about this Lau. He's a tracer that was talking to you the other day? No? He came to the store to tell me that the torrential rain in the area, it's because of me. I'd feared as much. And well, somehow, we discovered that I'm a conduit.
Oh?
Oh? A conduit? Uh-huh. How cool is that? Huh. I need to hear everything. Tell me exactly what happened. I feel Uncle in on everything that's happened. Lau enchanting jewelry, you tuning, Jazz and Maribel. I can't believe this, but it's clearly the truth. Perhaps I should have known. You always did have something about you, Twyla. The way you think and see others around you. It always felt a little too familiar to me. Familiar? What do you mean? Well, sorry to burst your bubble a little bit, but you're not the only conduit here. What? You're a conduit too, Uncle. That I am. Although I found out when I was a fair bit older than you. No way. How is this? Is it in our blood? It could very well be. I don't think I've heard of it being a hereditary trait, however. Forces. Uncle, you're really a conduit? Why haven't you ever told me this? There's good reason for that. Don't you worry. Listen, Twyla, being a conduit isn't all fun and games. I hope you've realized that by now. I think so. Especially using your abilities for this kind of service. It comes with a lot of responsibility. To be frank, I'm not sure it was right of this Lau fellow to go around telling everyone that you're a conduit. Though in his defense, there hasn't been any of those issues in decades. That's right, he couldn't have known. Huh? Known what? What issues? Well, there are those who seek to abuse the power of conduits for their own gain. As is always the case. 30-odd years ago, it wasn't all too uncommon that I'd hear of kidnapping, bribes, coercion, all in attempts to misuse conduit powers. Especially in the wave of the disaster, when some grew restless and began forming all sorts of meddlesome organizations. Though, all that, Zenoan's strangely political underground crime scene, its history of tormenting conduits, that's a story for another time. But there's your answer as to why I've kept it hidden, and why the Circle recommends we do so. Unfortunately, part of being a conduit traditionally was the fear that comes with constantly having a target on your back. These days, we don't have to be nearly as afraid, but throwing caution to the wind could very well change that. Hold on. How could these criminals misuse the powers of conduits exactly? To their credit, those scums were quite creative. To give you an example, a loan shark might coerce a conduit to imbue an artifact with fear and plant it inside of the debtor's house. Earth below. The most clever and dreadful bunch would deceive conduits into believing they had good intentions, as doing so would often lead to better results. Because you see, there's this trend of sorts. Historically, conduits have almost always been individuals with a strong sense of morality. Oh, really? It's true, and thank the forces for it. Though I already knew you were a good egg, Twyla. Thanks, Uncle. I can't help but beam. I wish Uncle had time to hang around the store more. Stars, no, I could use the company. But, okay, give me another example, and sorry if this is bringing up bad memories, but I need to know. Alright, let me think a moment. One of the lesser-known radical groups from the 70s was particularly odd. I remember reading upon them as a kid. What were they? The Free Minds Collective, that's it. They had this figurehead who could apparently purify the spirits of believers, cleansing any trace of chaos from their spirits. Not a drop of truth there, of course. He'd in fact tricked several conduits into imbuing tranquility into several large pieces of stone. Later he fashioned them into statues of himself and built the temple of his cult around them. For years he claimed to be some kind of god amongst men. And unfortunately there were many gullible, but innocent, folk that believed him. After all, his temple made them feel so at peace. Forces above, really? I feel a nostalgic warmth, even though we're talking about cults and criminals. These kinds of conversations with Uncle are the ones I love the most. He always knows so much more than he lets on. Yeah, ridiculous, huh? You'd never hear of this kind of nonsense happening nowadays, fortunately. Please tell me the truth came out. People must have eventually discovered that he'd just tricked a bunch of conduits and that it was all a sham, right? At ease, Twyla. His crimes were soon brought to light, and in fact that discovery coincided with the formation of the Circle. One of the few good things the Zenoan state's ever done, I'd argue, was to push for the Circle to be formed. Because of them, Zenoa was eventually able to put a stop to these creative criminals. But not after they'd deceived many earnest conduits. So, what is the Circle? Oh, of course, the Circle of Conduits. They're the most sequestered department of the Chaos Response sector. They exclusively handle all conduit matters in Zenoa, ensuring conduits are kept safe and aren't harming others. Any services like yours or mine have to be registered under their name, you see? My ears perk up. Which I now realize we'll have to do immediately. Sorry, Twyla. We'll have to close the store for the time being, while I get in touch with them. Oh. Despite conduit crime being mostly a thing of the past, it's still risky to be running a store like this. Not to blame your friend, though. I doubt Lau would have known about the Circle. Not many do. That's okay then. But wait, you said you have to register your conduit services too? What services? Right, I have a lot to explain to you, don't I? Well, there's a reason it's only ever been myself providing the gold, silver and gems you use at this store. I wonder, are you aware of the concept of spiritual contamination? Not at all. The object and forces of nature, they each have a certain capacity to transform, like you transform the metal you bend into a ring. This capacity is dependent on the amount of chaos in their spirit. For the best craftspeople, materials that possess some amount of chaos in their spirit are simply not as malleable as those with less chaos. And nowhere near as malleable as those with vacant spirit. Malleable? Yes. It's not something that everyone notices, but expert artisans can tell right away the extent to which their materials are workable. Sometimes, for instance, some metal may simply not bend, or melt as clearly and consistently as others. Each professional knows the kinds of impurities in the final product that these small inconsistencies can create. But anyhow, what I do is provide stock to businesses like yours here by picking out the materials with the least spiritual contamination. Oh. Of course, it's not as simple as choosing the highest quality goods. If it were, these mining companies wouldn't let me nick all of their best stuff, whether I pay top dollar for them or not. How do you know if a spirit is contaminated? Yes, part of what you do with your enchanting, I'd expect, is tune into the spirit of your customer. From there, you can focus on the emotions they're exhibiting and let them into your spirit, yes? Similarly, I can tune into the spirit of the materials these companies source and find which are the most quiet or vacant of chaos. Truth be told, my job's much easier on my spirit than I imagine yours would be. I'm not sure just how under the forces you've managed to enchant jewelry for customers so quickly. That's a real feat, Twyla. It's hard, you're right. I hope I've been doing a good job. But after all, I'm sure your materials were a big part of making the store what it is today. I'm glad to have helped out, where I can. But wait, if Uncle has to go to all of the effort to detect the chaos in our materials, why can the chaos in the jewelry I enchant be felt by anyone who wears it? Uncle, why is it that my customers can feel the chaos in the jewelry I enchant, and yet only conduits can feel the chaos in other forces? Good question. You see, Twyla, there are two types of chaos. The chaos the average person sees and feels every day is a one-way chaos. One-way chaos can only be exhibited by people. It cannot be received. Here, I'll draw it out for you. The forces can receive one-way chaos, but they can't exhibit it. They can, of course, use it to transform, as we see during outbursts. The key is, when conduits like us absorb chaos, their spirits convert into two-way chaos. The only unique power we have as a conduit, in fact, is the ability to convert chaos like this, and to retain two-way chaos within our spirits. And then, hold on, I'll draw it out again first. From there, when you transfer this two-way chaos into your jewelry, it remains that way. Splits in two. Meaning not only does the gem and metal receive your chaos, it also exudes it. Oh, I get it. But of course, non-conduits can't maintain two-way chaos within their spirit. So when your customer receives emotions from your jewelry, it reverts to one-way chaos. That's so cool, Uncle. You know so much about this, I had no idea. I just know the basics, kid. But you can trust the circle, and I look out for you. Speaking of, I should go talk to them now, Twyla. Get you in the store registered, and let them know how your enchanting works. Hopefully they'll give us the okay on what you're doing here. Yeah. Don't worry, since the Circle have exclusive knowledge on conduit powers and capabilities, Zenoan State leaves them to their own devices. So while the state itself would likely kick up a fuss, chances are the Circle will be more than fine with your store. Oh, that's a relief. I'll keep you posted, Twyla. See you soon. Bye, Uncle. For the next week, the store was closed. I spent my time resting, getting back into reading, and crafting some little pieces of jewelry for practice. Gotta love a good book. Uncle came around a few times after speaking with the Circle. Things would be fine, he said. We just had to wait. He was adamant. I rest up, afraid that tiredness would disturb my spirit, especially since I was utining. I'm getting used to that sleep schedule. He even taught me some meditation techniques to ensure my chaos levels were in balance. The little chibis are so cute. Meditating felt odd, but I slowly started getting used to it. I was learning so much about conduits, chaos, and the new side of Uncle. Things seemed to be going well. I was using my time wisely and improving on myself, but also getting some rest. But is it weird that I'm suspicious? Like, aren't things going a bit too well? I thought about texting Jazz to hang out, but decided not to. Perhaps later. It's only been a week. And besides, I was grateful for the time to myself. There was so much to reflect on. 2 crazy days, and a week to put it all into perspective. The night before, the Twilight Jeweler was set to open up again. Lau had a little time to spare for a quick chat. After catching up on each other's weeks, Lau goes quiet. The rain's still pouring down, huh? Oh, forces, I almost forgot. You're right, why hasn't it stopped yet? Don't fret too much. I was just observing. Shouldn't have said anything. Besides, it helps to forget about it. As long as you're working on getting better, it does little good to concern yourself with the results. But I shouldn't I? If the rain isn't dying down, if I'm not seeing any results, then whatever I'm doing can't be working. I need to start taking this more seriously. I know you've told me not to get anxious over it all, but we both want to control this rain. Is there anything we can do about this? What if my uncle's efforts aren't enough? He looks at me blankly for a few seconds. Lau? I feel like I'm walking a tightrope. I feel the pull towards self-critical thought. It feels so natural. I want to believe this is all my fault. It must be. But this thinking won't help me. And if I'm blaming myself here and now, it's almost like I'm saying Haynes should have blamed himself back then, when he suffered. Forces, no. There's no chance I'd believe such a thing. Lau takes a deep breath. First of all, Twyla, it's good you're moving towards a more forward-thinking mindset. I say that with sincerity. You wouldn't believe how many struggle to take that first step. But please, let's take this slowly, one concern at a time, okay? Okay. Your mindset can be good for us, but it is not good in itself. It is only good insofar as you are able to apply it well. There's such a thing as being too forward-thinking. Now you're concerned that the rain's persistence means you're not on the right track. But why? If we're being honest here, we don't know what it means. We're coming to the conclusions based off incomplete evidence. This is purely result-orientated thinking. It is not fruitful. In fact, many studies have shown that outbursts affecting the skies are particularly volatile and vulnerable to chaos. What do you mean? It doesn't take as much chaos for the skies to be affected severely as it does for other forces. Although it's historically quite rare for the skies to receive an outburst, as they're so far from us. I'm not saying this is the reason for the rain's continuance, it's just one of many possibilities, all of which don't involve you. Let's just say that it is true though, that what you're doing isn't working. If your struggles are causing this rain despite your best efforts, we should focus your thoughts on understanding your struggles. So forget the rain. Let's think about what we can control. That is our approach to addressing your emotional state. Remember what I said about complacency after the rain mellowed a bit for that day? You know, after you'd spoken to that girl. You mean Jazz? Yes, her. He doesn't even remember her name? Just like you shouldn't have felt ease at the rain calming down, you shouldn't feel anxious about the rain intensifying. I shouldn't have felt ease? Isn't it good to feel at ease? Not in itself. One can fall prey to a misplaced sense of peace. just as they can to a misplaced anger. The good or evil does not lie with the anger or the peace, but with the misplacement of either emotion, or any emotion for that matter. We are harmed only by improper judgments of the situation presented to us, and by those judgments alone. My judgment of this situation is that I feel very lost right now. Just forget about the rain and focus on yourself. Don't concern yourself with external events. They will improve over time if you... Okay, I get it. No more result-orientated thinking then. Good. That's the kind of mindset you see in those Zaesians that can't leave the casino. They refuse to acknowledge that the outcome of the game is out of their control, instead attributing the results to arbitrary superstitions. I once met a Zaesian gambler that was convinced that the bow tie he was wearing would affect his luck at the slots. Horses. But anyway, tell me, how have you been feeling, Twy? I've been surprisingly well, honestly. I mean it. I've still been thinking about Mum a lot. It's just not as... terrible. Do you think you're handling things better? Maybe. That's a hard question to answer. But my uncle being a conduit too has helped out a lot. I feel a lot less general confusion about my conduit powers in enchanting now. He's also helped me ensure everything's safe and sorted out. Remember, you can't tell anyone about him though. I won't. Also, I apologize for my ignorance. I didn't know about the circle at all, and I'd only ever heard old stories about the dangers of conduits faced, but I assumed it was all ancient. Don't worry about it, Lau. It was out of your control after all. Suppose it was. But it was nice talking to my uncle after a long day. Jazz was so sweet and made me feel so enthused about enchanting, but Maribel? She was a lot. Too much at times. I felt shaky after enchanting her piece, and there were a few moments I was genuinely concerned about the rain. But I think I mostly got over it. She was happy in the end. I just hope that the enchantment helps her and her husband. And Jazz and Ella. You're doing it again, Twy. Huh? With this kind of practice, you can use the outcome of your work to guide your process to an extent, but you should focus on your process of enchanting, not the outcome of how it affects the recipient. That's very much out of your control. Okay. By the earth, Lau. Can't I hope a little? That's why I'm doing this job after all. Alright, but just remember, it's unreasonable to concern yourself with what you have no control over. The statement doesn't sit right with me, even though he's just reiterating what he said earlier. In that case, yes. Feeling grief. You don't think it's reasonable? I can't do anything about Mom being gone. Not anymore, but I'm still concerned. Lau pauses for a long moment. Never mind. I shouldn't have dropped that on you so suddenly. I don't know why. I think allowing your grief to dictate your life would be unreasonable. Yes. Though what you're feeling now I think is well within reason. But like I've said before, we shouldn't concern ourselves with the morality or rationality of your grief. We should be focusing on helping you. But why? Why do you feel my grief is within reason? It does little good, Twyla, to again feel insecure about the validity of your emotions. I stare at him, the question resolute in my gaze. The stubborn type, aren't you? Maybe. Just a little? When the situation calls for it. He sighs in defeat. Loser. The unexamined life is not worth living, huh? Huh? It's a Socrates quote. You're that type, aren't you? You need to understand it all. And you're not? He laughs softly. I am as well, of course. I just only now realized that you are too. Okay. I feel it again, that glimmer of warmth. Suddenly, I realize that he must be more than he puts on. His spirit is a fire one, there's no doubt. As quickly as the realization comes, he steels himself again, and I lose sight of that glimmer. Yet, looking into his eyes for that brief moment alone, has my spirit flaring up. A slow burning fire ignites within me, and my breath hitches. Does she have a crush? I thought it was like her secret brother or something. Though, as I said, I do think your grief is reasonable. I do not think it is wrong because, well, because I trust you. What? I trust your strength. It's clear you're trying to fight through this, and you have been. Like I told you, the day we met, I can't know for sure whether you've been negligent in controlling your emotions, and I can't know whether there is an extent to which the blame can justly fall upon you. But you've accomplished no small feat since that day. Your strength is clear. I'm too focused on his words to stop the blush from rising to my cheeks, and yet I don't see any of that warmth. Once more, his words feel so close, but his eyes are so distant. It's also clear your love and grief are not simple enough that they can be mastered and forgotten. Yeah, you're right. I can't imagine these feelings ever leaving me completely. Your mother was a significant, irreplaceable part of your life. I believe that is why your struggles have manifested in this manner, not because of any sort of negligence. I believe so too. Good. Have some faith in this belief then. Why, we've reasoned our way through to reach it after all. There's no hard line that can help us discern whether something like grief is reasonable. But you and I can both see that it is, no? Yeah, you're right, Lau. Every rule has an exception. In general, I still believe it's true that stressing over what's beyond our control is unreasonable. But again, it's unclear what exactly is, and isn't within our control, at all times. Expecting humans to be void of emotions is unreasonable in itself. You'd be hard-pressed to say that the human spirit is anything but vulnerable. So perhaps that you grieve is also out of your control, Twyla, to some extent. That being said, I believe you can control some of your grief as well. That's what we're working towards, no? Yeah, he's hoping. But Twyla, we can take things slowly. I'm here early on in this case for that very reason, remember? Even if you find yourself struggling, that's okay. Thanks, Lau. I didn't plan on talking about this heavy stuff tonight. You know, right before I opened back up and threw myself into enchanting again. But I'm glad we did. After chatting for a bit longer, it's time to get some rest before my second big day.